Hi there, Lee Farnell here, and welcome to Leading Your Best Life. Now, today we're going to talk about something that really impacts us all as adults, and it's based on a fantastic interview I've done with Bryn Edwards on healing, the wounded healer, wounded adults who've had childhood trauma or just an upset. Now, you can have all sorts of upsets even in adult life, but why is it that sometimes even the slightest thing, someone cutting you off in traffic, ends up in an overblown reaction? Well, stay tuned, here we go. Welcome back. If we're talking about leading our best life, this is something that most blokes in particular avoid like the plague, which is taking a look inside at why are you sad, angry, frustrated, depressed, feel like a loser, feel like you're not part of mainstream society, all of these things. And whether it be myself going through ups and downs, or whether it be mates of mine, or whether it be from our Blokes Talk beach side, we know that when it comes to mental health and well-being, that men are far more likely to commit suicide. 3/4 of suicides are men. So what the hell is going on that triggers guys to get to that stage? But women as well. This whole idea of being wounded as a child, yet dragging it on into adulthood. Now, we talk about this in my upcoming interview with Bryn Edwards when we're talking about the wounded healer and people wanting to save the world, particularly as consultants and coaches, but not just consultants and coaches, parents and managers and even sporting coaches. Why does a coach go off his head at the side of the water polo pool or the football field, or the parents going off their head? What is causing that? It's not that day. It's actually stuff from 10, 20, 30 years ago. So again, in this interview with Bryn, we talk about the Holmes and Ra scale, which talks about life stress events. Life stress events. In fact, I'm going to look it up right now. Holmes and Ra. We did a lot of work on it even as far back as my master's degree many, many years ago. But the Holmes and Ra scale is well researched, which shows that certain events in life score more highly and upset us more, not only in terms of internal chemistry upset, stress, but also in terms of ongoing stress. So death of a spouse scores 100, divorce 73, marital separation from a mate 65, detention in jail or other institution 63, right down to major change in usual type or amount of recreation, that scores 19, or sexual difficulties scoring 39. And it says 150 points or less means your relatively low amount of life's change and low susceptibility of stress or health breakdown, but 300 points or more raises the odds to about 80%, according to Holmes and Ra, where they can literally predict health issues, life issues, or work safety, accidents at work. So it's a very well-researched scale. And of course, most blokes avoid this like the plague. No, mate, just push on, take a concrete pill. So I asked the question, what are some of the proven models to actually heal adults? Now, in the interview, Bryn talks about the importance of acknowledging it, acknowledging the stress, acknowledging the trigger, acknowledging that trauma as a child. In Bryn's case, he talks about being in boarding school and all the bullshit that went on in a boarding school to create all sorts of havoc. I know my good mate John Dowst has written about it in his book Bird on a Wire, both in terms of family upset and what was expected, and at the same time going to a boarding school and all the bullying and the bastardization that went on, literally and metaphorically. But he talks about charge, emotional charge still being there. So why does that person get angry so easily, or get sad so easily, or get depressed so easily? So we talk about this in the interview, but I thought I'd just go through what are some of the steps, the proven steps to healing some of the childhood trauma. And again, you guys, take a look at this. Go and talk to a professional. And again, as Bryn says, we're talking about emotion here. So just talking about it is okay, but that's not going to do the trick. One, you have to acknowledge the trauma, accept it, and be aware what the hell did it. You know, the footy coach trying to fiddle with you, or your uncle, or there's all sorts of things that can go on in life that create these kind of stresses. And as a bloke, we try to bury them down, mate, just push on. I've got a mate of mine right now who literally is catatonic in bed, is in bed 11 hours a day, and there's a whole range of issues that are there. He's trying to work through them, but another guy had a big breakup with his partner, and he hung on to it for 4 and 5 years, and eventually had to have major therapy to begin the healing journey, rather than look in the mirror, acknowledge that issue, so acknowledge the trauma. And there's things like journaling and therapy and body scans, inner child work, narrative therapy. There's all sorts of things to begin to acknowledge. Step 2, create a sense of safety, because as Bryn said, you've got to acknowledge it. You must then express it in one form or another, and that doesn't just mean talking about it. In fact, I was just watching Dale Thomas, the Collingwood player who then went to Carlton, talking about this on an interview just last night, where he said his father was an alcoholic, eventually through all sorts of traumas. The father finally left home. He buried it, and it was only when he went to some therapy later on in his mid to late 20s, and he said, all I did there was sit and cry, and I didn't realise I'd carried this around with me for years, the expressing of the emotion. He said it was so embarrassing because I was just sitting there crying. But again, I know my mother, when my dad died and she went to a carers group, she'd been looking after my poor invalid father with myotonia dystrophia for 30, 35 years. When Dad finally died, she went to what they call a carers group, and she said, I just sat there and cried and cried. She'd stored it up. She stored all this stress up. And what have you been storing up or burying? So this is what we're talking about in the interview with Bryn. There's so much we can cover here. Creating a sense of safety, re-regulating the nervous system. This is where breath therapy, and certainly in my case, breathing at yoga and a range of things, certainly swimming is a major thing to help me. But then this is where you need a professional to reframe the trauma. As it says, unprocessed trauma keeps replaying itself subconsciously. Oh, come on, Lou, you're getting a bit bloody deep now. So there's all sorts of internal family systems, IFS training, cognitive behaviour therapy, reparenting techniques, things like guided visualisation. Oh, Lou, you're getting a bit hippie and tree hugging now. Guys, this is where Bryn comes in. And he said it needs to be an integrated model. So you'll find out more about that in the actual interview. Reconnecting with the inner child, why that matters. Trauma often freezes parts of us at the age we were hurt. I know my mother, her dad died suddenly of tuberculosis at about age 11, and that's had a major impact on her, and at the same time I'm sure it's had an impact on me and my family. Inner child dialogue, self-compassion, being kind to yourself. Oh no, you're a bloody loser. Look at the Robbie Williams movie, as he said, the self-hatred that went on there with him. Look, we're all going through stuff. We're all going through stuff, folks. It's a question of how do we, as Bryn said, cleanse the charge, release the charge, otherwise the charge is still there. I've seen managers go off screaming and yelling, throwing things across the office. They see Donald Trump throwing things in the White House because what's going on? It's all a pile of stuff. Let's take Donald Trump and his father, Donald Trump and his mother. There's all of that. As someone once said, you know, the only person Donald Trump's trying to actually get approval from is actually his dead father, who was so tough on them. The same with Kerry Packer and Frank Packer, which then has had its massive impact on James Packer. You see that on 60 Minutes. Poor James Packer's gone through all sorts of mental health issues, and it was his father, but his father's father. Talk about intergenerational trauma. Oh, come on, Lee, you're doing too way hippie here. Just take a concrete pill, mate, and move on. But wait for this interview. We start talking about rebuilding an empowered identity. So it's strength-based therapy, affirmations, vision boards, life mapping, challenging some of the limiting beliefs that you have, developing secure relationships. Healing happens in relationships, both with yourself and others. So you're starting to get into therapy group work, secure attachment repair, boundary setting, co-regulation practice. These are all things that Bryn does, but you want to get someone who knows about this, not just knows a bit of it. Oh, just change your diet. Just do a bit of ice bathing and you'll be right. Just do a bit of breath work. No, it needs to be an integrated model because, as Bryn says, energy, emotion flows. You must get it flowing out of the system. Well, there's a great line that someone once said, the body weeps the tears the eyes do not show. A whole lot of great researchers and therapists have done work on this. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, key work, The Body Keeps Score. Dr. Gabor Mate, The Myth of Normal, or When the Body Says No, talking about that link between childhood trauma and adult addiction or illness or anxiety. Dr. Peter Levine, Waking the Tiger, somatic traumatic experiencing. Dr. Richard Schwartz, founder of the Internal Family Systems Therapy. Francine Shapiro, creator of EMDR, eye movement desensitization, there's a lot of work here, guys, stuff I know little or nothing about and need to explore myself, but certainly just my yoga and a range of things. But I'm sure there's still things I need to express and get out to get the charge off, the limiting beliefs that are still holding me back to be leading my best life. So we're all going through something, and as someone once said, we're all going through something, and it's often something you can't even see. It's under the surface, like the iceberg under the water. So get ready for the interview with Bryn Edwards, where we talk about this in more detail. And in the meantime, be willing to turn the eyeballs inwards. Here it is, Dr. Dan Siegel, the whole brain child, to learn more about yourself. It goes way, way back. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Know the enemy, know yourself, need not fear the result of 100 battles. And it may well be that part of the enemy is actually the self, because I haven't processed some of the shit that we've buried for 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 years. Want to find out more? Get ready for the interview with Bryn Edwards. And want help leading your best life? Get access to some of the free material we have. Hope this has been of some value. What are you going to do to help heal that inner child? See you next time. See you with Bryn Edwards. See you soon. Thanks for listening. I'm Lee Farnell.